Oh, well.
Man, oh man, Shep. Wow. Just incredible. How do we keep up with this, Navy? I mean, well, we've got state-of-the-art graphics because Your World has begun, and it is now live. Holy Toledo. Out of this world. Out of this world, Shep. Speaking of which.
Astronaut is off structure. Dr. Stone is off structure. Dr. Stone is detached. You must detach. You don't detach that arm's going to carry you too far. Listen to my voice. You need to focus. I'm losing visual of you. In a few seconds, I won't be able to track you. You need to detach. I can't see you anymore. Do it now.
Well, maybe we should detach because while Sandra Bullock is breaking records at the box office, Washington is just broken and not even in the office. They say in space no one can hear you scream. That is not the case in Washington.
You took the country hostage for no apparent reason.
A senior White House staffer this morning said that the president would rather default on our debt than to sit down and negotiate.
He doesn't apparently want to see the government shutdown end at the moment, unless he's able to extract concessions that don't have anything to do with the budget.
So they're still at it. 7 days of this shutdown nonsense, and they are still doing it, still pointing fingers, still calling names. Had enough? Well, this past weekend, covering all of this nonsense live, so did I.
An administration, a president that seems to be unwilling to sit down and talk with us.
We're doing it again. We're doing it again. That might in fact be the case. It might be the administration's fault. The other side is going to blame the Republican side, and you're the cause of this. We're not the cause of this. So we'll keep monitoring this. I mean, no offense to Eric Cantor, but waste of time.
On 7 different occasions, the Republican Party of no has not taken yes for an
Here we go. Here we go. I cannot believe this. Seconds into it, it's already the Republican Party. So I'm going to interrupt her. Guys, we're going nowhere fast with this. John Paul was speaking, by the way. Steny Hoyer has been talking. He, too, is name called. We're not going to Steny. Some of you saying, Neil, I noticed you cut the bikes of Republicans and Democrats. Would you do the same to the President of the United States? Actually, we did when we were getting these AP bites from the President from his interview with the Associated Press. As soon as he went into the lambasting Republican thing, we cut the bite short. Well, who knew that cutting them off would get so many of you sounding off more than 2,000 emails after just the 2 hours we were on this past weekend, including this from Jafan via Yahoo. Thank you for cutting off the mics of these silly schoolyard children. We are sick of it. T via Verizon.net. Thank you for raising the bar by refusing to air the continual childish finger pointing and name calling. Cecilia via Yahoo. I wish every news person would do that. Kathy on AOL. I commend you for making a wise decision. At least I didn't feel compelled to switch channels. Perish the thought. Maggie via CenturyTel.net. Finally, you've corralled the problem. If they are name calling, don't give them any coverage. Pat in Michigan. Kudos to you, Mr. Cavuto. You are the first TV personality to actually put your money where your mouth is. You are as disgusted as all of us are, and you are doing something about it. Barbara via Comcast. Neil, thank you for your stance on not listening to the talking points and demonizing the other party. If everyone would do the same, Congress might come up with constructive ideas. Still, not everyone was thrilled by my behavior. Mark via MSN.com says, I'm the one who was acting childish. Obama doesn't play fair, and when the Republicans fight back, you tell them to grow up and play nice. Sorry, but you are an ass today, a child cut and run in the middle of a fight. Why don't you grow some? Well, you illustrate my name-calling point better than I ever could, Mark, so no need to elaborate. Carolyn via iCloud. You seem to be soft on Democrats and hard on Republicans. You sound just like a damn liberal. Then, Carolyn, you might want to chat with Chet in Newark, New Jersey. You're still a right-wing nut. Is it me, or do you enjoy cutting Democrats off more than Republicans? No, I'm a fair and balanced mic cutter, Chet. The names start, the coverage stops. Leonard via AOL. Your failure to permit congressional leaders to answer Obama is censorship. Wrong, Leonard. My failure not to cut any of them, including the president, when they resort to such language would be stupidity. Thomas in Wheaton, Illinois. I want to hear what they have to say. If you don't want to, then please let someone else host who allows both sides the freedom to speak. Then, Thomas, if name-calling and cheap shots match your sensibilities, may I suggest MSNBC? Because I would rather aim for something more, and so apparently does Linda out in Appleton, Wisconsin, who writes, "Thank you, Neil. We, the people, do deserve better than the constant finger-pointing and childish name-calling. And the best part is I don't have to turn off my TV or switch to the movie channel." Mike via Comcast, who admits to not exactly being a Fox News fan, writes, "Today, I thought that Neil Cavuto did a rather courageous and laudable thing. He cut off Nancy Pelosi as soon as she started sniping at Republicans. He's cut off Republicans sniping at Democrats, and apparently he's cut off the president when he snipes. Now we're talking. When the polls start to get cut off by journalists because they're sniping, I think we're in a new world. Congratulations, Neil, on what you've hopefully started. You certainly made my day." Gay via Yahoo. "Neil, I understand your frustration, but we need to hear what these clowns say so we can make informed choices." Well, unless your criteria is the degree to which they're acting like clowns, good luck getting informed by any of them. And finally, this from Chuck out in Waynesville, North Carolina. "Neil, don't be so critical. Our politicians are not acting. Most of them are sophomoric, and we continue to act stupid by voting for them." Well, if they're going to act like kids, then, to parenting coach Tammy Gold with some tips for dealing with them, especially when they get childish, right? So,
Yes.
What do you think, first of all, how they've been acting?
I think it's setting the wrong example. You know, as adults, we have to tell people how to act. We have to tell children how to act. And kids do this when they're mad. They get angry, they shut down, and they don't move forward. And that's what they're doing. And they're not setting a good example for the youth of today.
All right, so let's give them tips now, because apparently some of them forgot these basic guidelines. You say, first off, calm them down. Calm the children down.
Right.
What do you mean by that?
Everybody's going to get upset. And that's okay. You just have to learn how to deal with that appropriately. So if you're in a fight with someone, the first thing you want to do is calm yourself down so you can begin to do number two, which is clearly articulate what you're upset about and why you're so upset about it.
All right, so in other words, have them explain, that is the kids or the politician in this case,
Yes.
why they are upset. Now, we know each side is very upset at the other, but if they spell it out, what does that help them do?
It helps them just, you know, explain, get everything out. Sometimes you get, we call it in therapy, cycling. They're cycling their thoughts. They're getting overwhelmed. So spelling it all out. And then the second part to that is thinking about the other side to the fight. The fight is between two parties. So you explain why you're upset. And then when we tell children about fighting, you think about what could the other side be upset about. And number three, you want to make a plan. Okay, I'm upset, and now I think I should do this. And I think maybe the other party should do that, try to have them move forward.
All right. Now, I know with my kids, I have 11, 12-year-old boys, it's their way or the highway.
Right.
So when they get into an argument, it's sort of like nuclear destruction. Everything they want or nothing. You argue when dealing with children, as you deal with any unruly behavior, it's all about sharing.
Sharing and compromise, and that's teaching children and everybody the right thing to do in a fight. Of course, you have 100% your opinion, and the key is to meet someone in the middle ground. You're passionate about something, they're passionate about something. What are the two things that you can do that you can meet in the middle about? And that's what, you know, these politicians have to do. How can they meet in the middle?
Yeah, get something done in the meantime, right?
Instead of just crossing their arms and doing nothing.
All right. In the meantime, when we go to these press conferences, folks, if they continue to do so, if they continue to just blast each other and obviously indicate that they're not really moving the ball, we will interrupt them. Republican or Democrat, we did it this weekend. We do it a lot here. We want to get to the point. We're not red or blue, just green. This is about your money. We have very little time to waste. All right. Well, while they're busy stomping their feet, the market is just getting stomped. So this isn't really helping.
Congress shouldn't be creating self-inflicted wounds that hurt the economy and hurt the American people.
Votes are not in the House to pass a clean debt limit. And the president is risking default by not having a conversation with us.
We're not going to negotiate under the threat of economic catastrophe that economists and CEOs increasingly warn would result if Congress chose to default on America's obligations.
All right, when you use words like default and that kind of, I mean, that talk about tantrums and scare markets. Market Watch's Lizanne Saunders, Jim LeCamp on the impact all of this heated rhetoric is having on both sides. Lizanne, what do you think? Is the market finally relaying its concern, hey, this is festering into something?
Well, we're seeing a little bit of a correction here. So far, it's not as sinister as August 2011. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One, a lot of the background conditions are much improved relative to then, not least being the condition of the Eurozone debt crisis, the fact that the Fed is still adding to the balance sheet, the economic numbers are better. But I think what we're experiencing with the markets so far, relatively tame reaction, is maybe, I don't know, educated complacency. I think it gets worse before it gets better, but there is reason for hope that it won't be quite as dire as 2011.
You know, though, Jim, we just let slip by here, or that is, the media does a lot of half-truths and non-truths, outright lies. In other words, to say bumping up against that debt ceiling is the equivalent of default. That is not the case. Could you explain?
It's not the case at all. We can print money, and not only that, the Treasury Secretary has said around the 17th we might have problems paying our debt. This is all rhetoric. We're going to pay our debt, and it's really irresponsible for them to go public and say that we might default. I mean, what message does this send to global investors? And I think this is why you're seeing the dollar get creamed. The stock market's down 10 out of the last 14 days. Our economic recovery can't afford this. The U.S. was seen as one of the better economies in terms of this global recovery. This undermines it. And remember that Washington dysfunction is why the U.S. debt got downgraded in the first place in 2011. Now we have higher dysfunction, we have higher debt and higher deficits than we had back then. So this is a more serious issue than the market is reflecting yet. And I agree with Liz Ann that this could get worse before it gets better.
By the way, as you guys have been bemoaning the travails of the markets, we've been promoting on the bottom right portion of your screen our new anchor lineup, and we did in fact shrink our actual anchors down to size so they could hold up. His post is indicating the size. My biggest surprise there was that Bill O'Reilly agreed to do it. But just a reminder, if you find this a little too unnerving, I'm on at FBN at 8 p.m. I digress. It really is a great lineup. And Greta is going to be joining us a little later to talk about her kickoff show. But Liz Ann, to the kickoff in the markets getting kicked in the can, and this feeling that, you know, this could escalate into something because the law of unintended consequences. Do you fear that? And what would be the trigger for you?
You'd be naive not to fear it, and I think the trigger would be getting close to that 11th hour, and I think there's still, even at that point, will be the assumption that the children will get in the sandbox and play nice together and come up with a deal. But there is that possibility that that we find ourselves in the 12th hour in a minute and nothing is done. Now, we went through the specter of this in 2011. We had the debt downgrade, which a lot of people thought at the time would be disastrous in terms of the impact on Treasury yields, and that wasn't the case. Again, we don't want to be naive to assume that we'll ultimately get through it relatively unscathed. But I think the confidence effect on businesses, on investors, on consumers has actually been with us for some time now. I don't think this has moved the needle all that much from really just kind of a depressing state that we have been in terms of political dysfunction for years now. So
what she's saying, I think it echoes a point I hear from others, Jim. You guys are used to this sort of thing.
Well, we are, but in 2011 we had a bigger correction than we saw all of last year, and the market's at a higher level now. So I don't want to get too complacent here. I do think the market is behaving pretty well here, but we're already seeing a lot of economists lower their forecast for third and fourth quarter growth because of this uncertainty in Washington. Bear in mind, we have the budget, we have the debt ceiling, and we have the sequester. All of these things are going on at the same time. And again, while we had a market that was doing very well this year and an economy that was starting to respond, I agree with the Federal Reserve Board that Washington dysfunction has really kept us from having a full-blown recovery, and this will go to confidence, and that will go to any further recovery that we would have otherwise seen.
Jim, Liz Ann, thank you both very much.